"Daddy, the girl in the trunk is asking you to let her out," said our 4-year-old daughter from the backseat during a family drive. My husband's face went pale as he glanced at her through the rearview mirror, clearly alarmed. Whether he was pretending not to understand or genuinely confused, his frightened expression was unmistakable. "That's a scary thing to say, Sophia. You shouldn't make up stories like that," he replied, attempting to dismiss her words. From the passenger seat, I shot him a sharp glare. "Should we stop at the rest area?" I suggested, my voice laced with suspicion. We'd been married for 5 years, and I'd always supported him through his demanding work schedule. But now, our daughter's unsettling remark threatened to expose a hidden truth. "I am Charlotte Clark. I married my husband Freddie when I was 27, and he is 4 years my senior. The following year, our daughter Sophia was born, and she has grown up to be a healthy, lively 4-year-old. Our family life was busy but filled with happiness." "How about going to the zoo next Sunday?" Freddie suggested brightly. "Yay, I want to see the giraffes," Sophia exclaimed. Their cheerful exchange brought a smile to my face. Freddie had always been kind and attentive since we started dating, a quality that hadn't changed even after we got married and Sophia came along. On his days off, he loved spending time with us, taking part in family activities with enthusiasm. I often found myself thinking how lucky I was to have such a devoted husband and father for our daughter. Little did I know, these peaceful days were about to be disrupted. One day, Freddie returned home looking weary and dejected. "I've been transferred to a different department," he sighed. "It's company policy. They want me to gain experience in various roles." Unfortunately, this new department was known for being the busiest, which meant Freddie would have less time to spend with us. "Daddy, does that mean you won't play with me anymore?" Sophia asked, her eyes filled with concern. "I'll try my best to make time, sweetheart. We'll go to the zoo again soon," he'd assured her, stroking her hair gently. Watching them, I felt a pang of sadness. The thought of losing our precious family time was disheartening. But I knew Freddie was the one facing the biggest challenge, adjusting to his new responsibilities. "Please don't overwork yourself," I urged him. Freddie had a tendency to throw himself completely into his work, and I worried about him burning out. Unfortunately, my fears soon proved valid. For the first few weeks, Freddie managed to juggle his work commitments while still spending time with us. But about a month later, his time at home diminished drastically. He began working late into the night, often missing Sophia's bedtime, and started attending more client dinners and events, even on weekends. "Hey, can you take a day off next Sunday? Sophia misses you, and you've been working too hard lately," I pleaded one evening. "Who do you think I'm doing all this for?" he snapped, irritation creeping into his voice. "Do you want me to skip meetings and risk getting fired?" "That's not what I meant," I replied, feeling defensive. "I'm just worried about you." "That's none of your business," he retorted. "Just make sure you have money ready for next week's client dinner." Freddie's mounting stress made him irritable, and he started taking out his frustrations on me. His spending also increased significantly, justified as necessary for client entertainment, but it was beginning to strain our finances. I knew his previous kindness, and seeing this change in him was disheartening. I was more worried than frustrated about Freddie's current tense demeanor. I really needed to find a way to get him to take a break before he collapsed from overwork. 6 months had passed since his transfer, and my husband had reached a point where he was coming home mostly just to sleep. Sophia, feeling lonely because she rarely saw him, started wearing a sad expression more often. I knew things couldn't go on like this, so I began searching for a way to get him to take a break. However, as if to thwart my efforts, more bad things kept happening. My mother, who had been suffering from an illness for several years, suddenly passed away in the hospital. "No, Mom," I cried. My father had passed away when I was young, and my mother was my only surviving parent. I didn't even get to have a proper conversation with her before she passed away. When I heard the news at home, I was so shocked I couldn't move for a while. Yet Freddie's response to the news was unbelievably cold. "Do I have to go to the funeral too?" he asked indifferently. His attitude shocked me, and I widened my eyes in disbelief. While Freddie's relationship with my mother may have been somewhat distant, she was still family. Despite this, he showed no sadness or comfort, merely complaining about having to attend the funeral. "What are you saying?" "Of course you have to. It's a family funeral," I exclaimed. "Don't get mad at me." "Oh, why does this have to happen now?" I had plans, he retorted. Despite my reprimand, Freddie showed no signs of remorse. I was left in shock. In the past, he would have surely comforted me, perhaps rubbing my back and grieving with me. But now, as he sighed in dissatisfaction, he seemed nothing like the person I once promised a future with. Naturally, he didn't help with any preparations for my mother's funeral, so I arranged everything alone. On the day of the service, my husband remained sullenly silent. "It's over now, right? I'm heading home first," he said after the funeral ended. Freddie didn't help with any cleanup and quickly went home. I was initially confused by his actions, but by then I had lost the energy to be angry. I was simply bewildered and disappointed in him. No matter how busy and stressed from work he may be, his behavior at the funeral was unacceptable. When did my husband become such a cold person? "Mom, Sophia will help you," said my daughter, trying to comfort me despite the frustration with him. I finished cleaning up with my daughter by my side, and before heading home, I decided to stop by my parents' house for a short while. It wasn't far from where we lived, and I wanted to reminisce about my mother after saying my final goodbye. Though the decision was led by my heart, it felt right. When I arrived at my parents' house, burdened by grief, I discovered something shocking. "Mom, wait a moment," Sophia suddenly exclaimed as soon as we entered the house. Her expression changed and she dashed straight into the back room. Although I had taken her to visit my mother's place several times before, I had never seen her behave like this. Hurrying to follow her, I found Sophia opening the second drawer from the bottom of the dresser, as if drawn to it by some unseen force. "Mom, Grandma wants you to have this," Sophia said. I looked at the old hand mirror she was holding and caught my breath. The mirror had always been precious to my mother. She had treasured it so much that even I rarely saw her use it, and I didn't even know where she kept it. There was no way Sophia could have known about the existence of this hand mirror. "How did you know it was here?" I asked, astonished. "And what do you mean Grandma wanted me to have it?" "When Grandma was sleeping earlier, she told me that you were sad and asked me to give this to you," she answered innocently. I couldn't hide my surprise. I didn't think it was a coincidence, so I decided to ask Sophia some questions about things she couldn't possibly know, like tomorrow's dinner menu, what I was thinking about, and even thoughts I had during the funeral. To my astonishment, she answered every question accurately. I wasn't sure how long she had had it, but it seemed my daughter possessed a mysterious ability to know what people were thinking. "Wow, that's amazing, Sophia. You know everything," I said, stroking her head and feeling bewildered. I had always thought mysterious abilities were just fantasy, but I never imagined she actually had such a gift. Sophia put her hand on her hip and showed a proud look on her face. "That's right. Sophia knows about Dad too." "What do you mean?" I asked. What she told me was incredible and unforgivable. A few weeks after my mother's funeral, I casually mentioned my plans to Freddie one morning as he was about to leave for work. "By the way, I'm visiting my friend with Sophia next Sunday." Freddie abruptly stopped and frowned, looking genuinely troubled. "Really? Oh no, I'm off that day. That's too bad." Feeling the artificiality in his voice, I smiled quietly to myself. Now that I knew the truth, I realized there was no love left for Freddie inside me. On that Sunday, I left home with Sophia, killed about an hour, and then returned. "Dad, he's over there," Sophia said, pointing toward the garage. Taking a deep breath, I headed towards the garage with the shutter still down and lightly knocked on it. "Freddie, I know you're in there. Open it," I called out. "Charlotte, I thought you and Sophia had plans," he replied, sounding flustered. "They're canceled. If you're going somewhere, we want to come with you," I said firmly. He hesitated, reluctant to open the shutter. I had a pretty good idea of what was going on inside, but I decided to stay quiet and just observe. "Sophia wants to go for a drive too," I added. Unable to resist her hopeful voice, Freddie had no choice but to agree. A few minutes later, he reluctantly opened the garage and we started our drive together. Sitting in the passenger seat, I looked at Freddie's profile as he drove and solidified my final decision. Our marriage had been enjoyable and happy, but I also understood that those days would never return. "Hey, did you know Sophia has a special power?" I asked. As we merged onto the highway, I finally brought it up. My husband furrowed his brows in confusion at my sudden confession. "Huh? What's that supposed to mean?" "That's a silly joke," he laughed dismissively. "Daddy, the girl in the trunk, is asking you to let her out." our daughter confidently called from the back seat. I did miss the moment Freddie's face stiffened. Whether he intended to play dumb or not, his face, still pale, showed a frightened expression as he glanced at our daughter through the rearview mirror. What a scary thing to say. You shouldn't tell such lies. But it's true. Then should we pull over at the rest area? I suggested on behalf of Sophia, who was hanging her head. Freddie immediately looked at me startled. Huh? We don't need to do that. It's just a kid's joke. Sophia has a mysterious power, you know. Besides, it's hot today. It could be dangerous if someone's really in there. He must have realized what I said made sense. Flinching and stiffening, he headed towards the rest area with a contorted expression on his face. Upon arrival, we left Sophia in the air-conditioned car and went outside to check the trunk. I don't think there's anything in there. Come on, quickly, I said to my hesitant husband. Realizing he couldn't escape anymore, he nervously opened the trunk, breaking into a cold sweat. In the next moment, someone jumped out. I knew you were cheating. The young woman's face was flushed red from the heat. Yes, it turned out that while Sophia and I were out, Freddie had been cheating with her at our home. Probably just as they were about to go for a drive, we came back unexpectedly, so he had no choice but to hide her in the trunk. No, it's not like that. She is a colleague from work. We were just working together, Freddie stammered, shaking his head nervously. Working together? In the trunk? I chuckled at the blatant and ridiculous lie while standing firm. Taking a piece of copy paper from my bag, I showed it to them. And what is this? It says, let's go on a drive date on Sunday. As the woman and Freddie looked at the paper, they turned pale. Their lovey-dovey email exchanges were printed on it. Thanks to Sophia, I had found out everything. On the day of my mother's funeral, at my parents' house, my daughter had confided in me. Daddy has been spending a lot of time with Scarlett lately. I'm sad because Scarlett is taking Daddy away from me. Just having witnessed Sophia's power, what she said made me suspicious, so I decided to investigate my husband for a while. Sure enough, I found undeniable evidence of his affair on his phone. I told you that fake plan because I wanted to punish you. It's a shame it turned into this kind of drive. Hey, it's unfair to look through my phone without permission, Freddie protested, shaking his body. His absurd remark made me burst into laughter. I had thought he was just too busy to come home, but most likely, during that time, he was with his affair partner, Scarlett. He probably used the expenses for dates with her. Despite all the complaints and taking it out on me, who exactly was being unfair here? By the way, I've been recording everything since earlier, I said, recalling all the grievances. I took out my phone from my breast pocket. I expected this would happen, so I secretly pressed the record button to capture evidence since we got into the car. And the evidence I've gathered isn't just messages and this video. I didn't tell you, but I also had hidden cameras in the house and garage. Scarlett, I know everything about you too. Under my successive attacks, they both turned white as sheets. I was furious with Freddie, but I couldn't forgive Scarlett either. So I thoroughly investigated and managed to identify her. She was a 25-year-old new employee who had become his colleague in the new department. From reading the messages, it seemed she was aware of my existence yet still engaged in the affair, making her equally guilty. Oh, sorry, Charlotte, Freddie whimpered, probably not expecting to be cornered so perfectly. Feeling disdain for Freddie as he pleaded in a voice I had never heard before, I glared at both of them with all my anger. I won't forgive either of you. Prepare yourselves for alimony. Upon hearing my firm words, perhaps realizing their fate, both of them collapsed to their knees. Afterwards, I divorced Freddie. The fact that I had recorded the scene and gathered all the evidence paid off, and they were ordered to pay $300,000 in compensation. I was also able to claim $500 a month in child support from my husband. Their misfortune didn't end there. I heard their affair spread throughout the entire company since they worked in the same department, making things awkward. Eventually, they broke up. They were both looked at with disapproval by their colleagues and eventually had no choice but to resign. Now, it seems they ended up on the street with the burden of the compensation payments. Meanwhile, I am now enjoying peaceful days with Sophia. I'll continue to give lots of love to my daughter, who has a wonderful power, so that she can live happily in the future.